All right, here are 5 common mistakes I see people make with the drop thumb. These are just small technical things that really can affect the tone, the rhythm, the smoothness of your drop thumb. So let's get into it. So this first mistake is definitely the most pervasive. It's the most common mistake I see, and it especially affects beginners. So here's the thing, right? You've worked hard to build that basic bum diddy clawhammer banjo stroke, right? However, when you want to learn drop thumb, you get intimidated. You've learned from the beginning, you've heard from the beginning that drop thumb is this difficult beast, right? And it doesn't have to be. But the problem is when you're intimidated and you want to hit the right notes and everything, that clawhammer technique goes out the window. And what I see people do is they try to minimize the motion as much as possible so they don't miss strings, and they end up almost doing like a weird hybrid finger picking style rather than maintaining that hammer motion with their hand, right? So people end up sort of just plucking the strings with their thumb. It doesn't work. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound smooth. You're going to have dynamics issues, all that kind of stuff. And I've said this before, prefer solid rhythm over correct notes. Obviously, you want both, but rhythm is the foundation of this instrument. It's the foundation of music in general. I would rather miss with my thumb, hit a bum note, whatever, than lose my rhythm, change the tempo, that sort of thing. So maintain your confidence even as you're learning. It's not going to help if you learn to do drop thumb by having these little tiny stressed out motions where you're really just plucking with your thumb rather than maintaining that hammer motion, right? I want to mention too, if you really want to dive deep with some of this stuff, I've got a 30-day right hand clawhammer banjo challenge that's available now. This thing's really cool. So basically what happens is every day for 30 days, you get a 5 to 10 minute long video from me. With a practice exercise, I will explain a technique. We start from the very beginning, that build that basic rhythm, that bum diddy stroke, all the way up to advanced techniques by the end of 30 days, like the Gaelic lick, drop thumb, syncopation, really cool stuff in there. So I will link it in the description and up there. I think it's really worth checking out if you really want to dial in your right hand and get that nice and solid. The second mistake is actually slightly related to the first. Here's a theme you're going to see running through this video is that you want to keep that motion, that basic clawhammer banjo motion, exactly the same as much as possible when you're doing drop thumb. You're not changing much up here, right? And so we really want everything to be as close to our basic bum diddy clawhammer banjo stroke as possible, even when we're doing drop thumb. So the second mistake then is not digging your thumb into the string. Now, when we do drop thumb, we're always going to play the string that our thumb lands on if it's not the fifth. With the fifth string, it can be a little optional. But what I want you to think about is as you're coming in, I still want your thumb to bisect that string, right? You should be able to see it indented in the string. You're going to have to play with your angle a little bit, not to block the other strings. But there is some give here. Like you can push the string out a little bit with your thumb to kind of fit your thumb in there. But I really want you to think about continuing to sink your thumb into the string, whether it's the fifth or any other string. That will help your rhythm. That will help your tone. It's going to make that note nice and clean when you're plucking it the exact same way as when you pluck your fifth string. In fact, that's how I want you to think about it. You can go back and forth. And that plucking motion should essentially feel the same no matter what string you're on. All right, mistake number 3 is all about accuracy. And again, though, I feel like this is a bit of a confidence issue. So what happens when people go to move their thumb to, say, the second string, say you want to do a drop thumb from the first to the second string, what they end up doing is moving their whole hand down to get there. That is going to cause accuracy problems. Your index finger is going to be positioned incorrectly. It's just not ideal. Generally, you want to keep, I always think about it like this part of my hand positioned above the strings, and that really doesn't change a whole lot. You know, maybe tiny movements here and there, but for the most part, it's just straight in and out. So what do you do instead? Well, really, it's the same thing as your main striking finger, whether it's your index or your middle finger. When I want to strike the inner strings with my index finger, I'm not moving my hand up. I'm just moving my index finger closer to my thumb. And it's really the same thing with your drop thumb. You're just going to move your thumb closer to your index finger. So there are some drills that are super helpful here, and I kind of like to work on accuracy of my index finger and my thumb at the same time by doing this descending, ascending exercise like this. So I start with my index finger, I just move that down towards my thumb, back up, and then I move my thumb towards my index finger and back down. String that together, work on that a minute or two each day, and you'll be amazed at how accurate your drop thumb gets, and really your striking finger. And just kind of work on not moving laterally as you do that. Keep your hand positioned the same. Mistake number 4, this is a bit of a meta mistake. It's not so technique focused, but it is really just building drop thumb up in your head and stressing about it. I feel like when you start clawhammer banjo, drop thumb is always sort of relegated to like, yeah, maybe like advanced beginner, intermediate level is where you first start really trying to do it. And because of that, it seems like a skill you have to aspire to. The truth is, you can just think of your index or your thumb the same as your index finger, right? Just like that last exercise. So sometimes your thumb moves towards your index finger, sometimes your index finger moves towards your thumb, but really it's the same thing. And again, as long as that foundation is solid, that rhythmic foundation is solid, hey, if you hit a wrong note, don't worry about it. If you miss with your thumb altogether, whatever, maybe you got some funky syncopation in there. Just relax, have fun with it. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So start slow, build up your speed. Don't feel like this is some big, scary technique that you have to drill every day. It'll come with time and it'll sound great. It'll sound smooth eventually. Just keep working at it. To that end, I always recommend when you're trying to learn a new technique like this, like it can be helpful to maybe take a day or a couple days where you really do drill it hard, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But after that, and that's just so you feel reasonably comfortable with the basic technique of it. After that though, like don't waste your practice time just hammering technique. A lot of that comes because your brain's sort of working after your practice is over. And sometimes it just takes time. That is the missing ingredient. So, drilling for hours a day isn't going to get you there all that much faster than drilling, 5 minutes a day. So I think that it is super helpful to just, when you're learning a new technique like drop thumb, spend 1 to 5 minutes at the beginning of your practice session, doing an exercise or a drill. That really is going to get you there, in my opinion, about the fastest way possible. I have found in the past when I have really felt like, I'm just going to drill this technique over and over and over and over again. Yeah, might spend a lot of time on it, but really the gain I get is pretty negligible. So don't stress about it too much. 1 to 5 minutes at the beginning of your practice session, you're going to be in great shape. Okay. And mistake number 5, this is a nitty-gritty technical mistake, but I think it's pretty interesting. One really common thing I hear from people is that when they go for drop thumb, especially between the first and the second strings, they end up muting the first string. So say I have a drop thumb pattern like this. What they end up doing is muting that first string with their thumb. So, okay, really small technical point here, but this will fix this. Usually what I see, and I've had this issue before as well for myself, is what happens is you're rolling your wrist slightly down when you do that drop thumb. So you are striking, and when your thumb comes in, you're just rolling over that little fat part of your thumb over that first string. You're kind of following... I guess what's happening is you are striking a string and your index finger follows through and it brings the rest of your hand with it. So think about the angle of your hand, think about the angle of your thumb, and just make sure you're not rolling it, and that will fix that. All right, so give that a try if you are struggling with your drop thumb. And like I said, if you want to dive deep, check out the 30-day right hand clawhammer banjo challenge. See you next week.